Let me tell you about something that sounds like fiction, like something out of a dark fairy tale, but I swear this happened. A girl named Lydia moved into a new house with her family, and what she discovered behind a locked door changed her forever. Lydia was 11, imaginative and quiet, the kind of child who liked to explore old things, attics, basements, dusty books. Her parents were always working, too busy to pay her much attention. When they moved into an old Victorian house on a quiet street, Lydia was excited. A new place meant new secrets. On her first day exploring the house, she found a strange, narrow door in the wall behind the living room cabinet. It had been painted shut and bolted, but she managed to loosen the screws. Behind it was a brick wall. Or so it seemed. That night, she heard tapping. Slow, rhythmic tapping from behind the sealed door. Over the next few days, the tapping continued, and then, one night, the bricks were gone. Just gone. In their place was a dark, narrow tunnel. Lydia, curious and unafraid, crawled through. She emerged in a room identical to her own, but somehow softer, dreamlike. And downstairs, her mother was there. But this wasn't her real mother. This woman had porcelain skin, long black hair, and buttons sewn where her eyes should be. "Welcome home, Lydia," the woman whispered, her voice like warm syrup. "I've been waiting for you." In this other world, everything was better. The food was delicious. The house was always warm. The other mother sang lullabies at night and laughed at Lydia's jokes. Her real parents never did that. There were other people too. A smiling version of her father with stitched-on dimples. A neighbor boy who never blinked. And a black cat that followed her silently, only speaking when no one else was around. "You shouldn't be here," the cat said one night. "She doesn't let children leave." But Lydia ignored the warning. She liked it here. She felt seen, loved. Until the other mother asked her to do one small thing. "Sew these buttons onto your eyes, darling. Then you'll stay with me forever." Lydia hesitated. "But I don't want buttons for eyes." The other mother's face twitched. "Don't be ungrateful. I gave you everything. You belong to me now." Suddenly, the house no longer felt warm. The rooms grew colder. Shadows clung to the corners. The food tasted like ash. The smiling father began to glitch, repeating sentences like a broken toy. Lydia tried to return through the tunnel, but it was gone. Just a wall where it used to be. "Stay with me, Lydia," the other mother whispered from behind her. Her button eyes glinted in the dark. The black cat appeared again. "I'll help you," it said, "but you mustn't let her catch you looking for the key." Lydia learned the truth. The other mother had done this before. There were other children trapped in the walls, ghostly, silent, hollow-eyed. She saw them once, reflected in a mirror. They reached out, mouthing the word, "Run." With the cat's help, Lydia found the key to the tunnel hidden inside a rotting dollhouse replica of her own home. The doll version of herself lay inside, stitched, unmoving. She ran. The house warped and twisted behind her, hallways stretching, rooms flipping upside down. The other mother screamed inhuman sounds, her limbs now elongated, spider-like. Lydia unlocked the door and threw herself through the tunnel. She landed hard on the floor of her real living room. The door slammed shut behind her. Her parents were there, looking worried. They had no memory of her being gone. "You were just in your room," they said. The strange door was sealed again. This time Lydia bricked it up herself, but every now and then she hears tapping. And sometimes, at night, when the lights are off, she sees something black, tall and thin reflected in the mirror, watching her with button eyes. So, if you ever move into a new house and find a small door that leads somewhere it shouldn't, don't open it. And whatever you do, never agree to sew anything onto your body. They say nothing lives out there. No people, no warmth, just silence, wind, and an ocean of ice. But that's not true. There's a story I've been holding on to. Something a man named Nathan Harrow told me after he came back from the Arctic. He wasn't the same. He was pale, twitchy, always checking over his shoulder. He told me there's something still transmitting, something alive in the static. Nathan was a communications engineer sent to evaluate an old Russian weather station, Polar Station 103. It had been abandoned for over a decade after a massive storm wiped out the crew. The official report called it structural failure, but there were rumors, missing bodies, corrupted transmission logs, no final message, just silence. He went alone, except for a pilot who stayed back at the chopper. Nathan's job was simple: check the old satellite systems, see what could be restored. He didn't expect to find anything working, but inside the buried, ice-covered station, he found lights that still flickered, consoles that hummed, and then a radio that turned on by itself. Nathan said the frequency was exactly 301.7 MHz. The console lit up green, and static began to hiss through the speakers. He recorded it on his phone, just out of habit. But when he played it back, it wasn't just noise. There was a voice, barely audible, almost like a whisper under the waves. «Не уходи. Мы все еще здесь». He translated it later. «Don't leave. We are still here». He thought it was just interference, maybe leftover electromagnetic data bouncing through frozen air, until he saw the logs. That frequency had been broadcasting the same signal every single night at 3:17 a.m. for 10 years straight. Nathan stayed overnight to observe. He didn't plan to sleep, and sure enough, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the radio lit up again. But this time, the sound didn't come from the console. It came from the old hallway speakers, crackling to life after a decade of silence. A woman's voice called out, shaky, pleading, "Alexei! Alexei, answer me!" Nathan followed the sound to the main communications room. That's where he saw them. 6 crew members, frozen into the wall. Eyes wide, mouths twisted open, not fossilized, not decomposed. Fresh, as if they were still screaming. He ran, but before he could make it to the exit, the radio changed again. The frequency began jumping. 3917, 302.1, 303.6. It wasn't transmitting anymore. It was scanning, looking for something. Someone. He tried calling his pilot. The satellite phone only played back the same static, until a voice came through, his own voice, whispering, "Don't answer. They hear you." That was when Nathan finally panicked. He quit everything, changed numbers, left his job, told no one, except me. And last week, he called me, whispered one thing before hanging up. "They're still calling." I checked my own shortwave radio that night. Guess what frequency it was locked on? 3017 MHz. Whatever's out there didn't stay in the Arctic. It found a way to reach us, and it's still waiting for someone to answer. You ever hear of those antique mirrors people find in old estates? The ones people swear show more than just your reflection? Well, this story isn't about an ordinary mirror. It's about an entire room, made of mirrors, and the guy who walked in, but almost didn't walk out. A friend of mine, Jason, recently inherited his grandfather's countryside estate. A sprawling, half-rotting Victorian house tucked deep in the hills of Vermont. Jason wasn't close with his grandfather. The old man was a recluse, rarely spoke, and kept the house sealed after his wife died decades ago. Jason was planning to sell the place, but before he could, he had to go through the house, inventory it, sort the junk. He called me after the first night there, voice low. "Dude, there's a locked room upstairs, behind the attic. No windows, no lights. But when I shined my phone flashlight through the keyhole, it looked like mirrors. Like all mirrors." I told him to be careful. He laughed it off. Said he'd check it out tomorrow with a crowbar. He shouldn't have. The next day, he sent me a video. Shaky, dim, but unmistakable. The room was a perfect cube. Walls, ceiling, even the floor. All mirrors, no seams, no dust, just endless reflections. And Jason, standing dead center, filming himself from every angle. "I found the key in one of Grandpa's books," he said in the video. "This place is insane. It's like the reflections aren't even synced to me. Look." He raised his right hand, but in the mirror some versions raised their left. One lagged behind. One didn't move at all. He turned the camera and zoomed into one mirror. In that one, his reflection was smiling, but Jason wasn't. I called him immediately. No answer. I texted, "Get out of that room, now." He didn't reply. The next call came that night. His voice sounded off. Hollow. "I think I'm seeing things," he said. When I close the door to the mirror room, I still see the reflections, out of the corner of my eye, in other mirrors, even my phone screen. I asked if he'd slept. He said no. The reflections, they're watching me. They're not just delayed. They're planning something. One of them blinked when I didn't. Then, silence. I drove to the estate the next morning, 6 hours straight. When I got there, the front door was wide open. Jason's phone was lying on the floor in the foyer, still recording. I called his name, but the house was dead quiet. I found the mirror room upstairs. The key was still in the door. I opened it slowly. Jason was inside, but not standing. He was pressed against the far wall, hands splayed, like he was stuck behind the mirror. Only, it wasn't the real Jason. He looked at me from inside the mirror, pounding against it, his mouth forming words I couldn't hear. Behind me, in the reflection, I saw another Jason standing right beside me, smiling. When I turned around, the room was empty. I slammed the door shut, locked it. I didn't even look back. Jason was never found. The police wrote it off as abandonment, but I still have his phone, sometimes. I open the gallery, and I swear the videos change. In some, I see Jason sleeping, but the room is not his bedroom. Sometimes I see myself, holding the phone, filming, but I don't remember recording those. The mirror room is still up there, waiting. And if you ever find a door you weren't supposed to open, ask yourself this. If you see yourself inside, but it's not doing what you are, which one of you is real, and which one's already trapped? Let me tell you a story about a woman named Elise, a woman who accepted a job too good to be true, in a place where nothing ever truly dried, and the fog never blinked. Elise had just finished her studies in literature when she was offered a position as a live-in tutor for 2 children at an estate in Devonshire, England. The pay was excellent, and the letter came from a man claiming to be their distant uncle, Lord Whitmore, a name she'd never heard but one that sounded important. The estate was called Greyhollow, and it sat perched on the edge of the moors, wrapped in a near-constant blanket of fog. Even the driver who took her there hesitated before turning onto the long, winding lane that led to the house. "Never liked this place," he muttered. "Fog watches you here." Elise laughed nervously, brushing it off as local superstition. When she arrived, the housekeeper, Mrs. Bellamy, greeted her with a pale smile. "You'll be in the East Wing. The children stay in the West. You'll find them curious." And curious they were. Lila, age 8, and her brother Thomas, age 10, had the most peculiar habits. They never spoke unless spoken to, and even then, they whispered. At night, they would sit at the edge of their beds, staring out the windows into the fog. At first, Elise thought it was just the isolation that made her uneasy. But then she began to hear things. Whispers, muffled, like someone speaking from underwater. Footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. One night she found Lila sleepwalking, or so she thought, standing by the window, whispering. They're still in the fog, watching, waiting. "Who, Lila?" Elise asked gently. "The ones before us," the girl replied. "The ones who stayed too long." The next morning, Lila remembered nothing. Elise asked Mrs. Bellamy if anyone had lived here before them. The old woman hesitated, then quietly said, "There were others, tutors like you. One disappeared in the fog. The other, was found with her eyes missing, still staring. That night, Elise dreamt of fog filling her room, creeping over her bed, cold and wet and humming with voices she couldn't understand. She tried to leave, but every road out was swallowed by the mist. The car engine refused to turn. The phone lines crackled, useless. It was as if the house itself wouldn't let her go. One evening, she followed Thomas into the moors. The boy walked slowly, barefoot, eyes closed, as if drawn by something. "Elise," he said without turning. "Do you hear them? They like you." The fog thickened around her. She could barely see a foot ahead. She reached for Thomas, but her hand met only mist. And then, silence. A whisper came from just behind her ear. "Stay with us." She screamed and ran blindly until she saw the dull orange glow of the house's windows. When she stumbled inside, Mrs. Bellamy was waiting. "You shouldn't follow them," she said coldly. "It makes them hungry." Elise found the old records in the attic, reports of 5 previous tutors. None lasted more than a month. One wrote in her journal, "The fog watches. It has eyes. The children are its messengers." She confronted Mrs. Bellamy the next day. The woman only replied, "Lord Whitmore died 10 years ago. There is no uncle. The house chooses." Elise realized then, the letter had no return address, no signature. It was never about employment. It was bait. That night, Lila came to her door. "It's your turn," she said calmly. "If you look back, they'll know you're afraid." Elise tried to run, through the fog, through the woods, and she almost made it, but something moved in the mist. Dozens of figures, faint and slow. Watching, she turned her head for just a moment. A face stared back from inches away, pale, wet, eyeless, smiling. When the villagers found the house weeks later, there was no sign of Elise, just her journal on the porch, open to the final line. "The fog watches. It never blinks." No one goes near Grey Hollow anymore. The fog is always there, thick and quiet. They say if you stare too long into it, you might see someone staring back. Someone who used to be just like you.